recorded. And it's also in the same way, it's being live streamed on Facebook. But again, just as with that, just as with the recording, you will not be visible on that, but it is going to be there. That's our kind of like our, I guess, our housekeeping bit out of the way. Why don't I do some introductions? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this picture off the screen for a minute so we can say a bit of a hello. So my name is Ben, and I work for the Derbyshire Wildlife Trust, and I like doing webinars about beavers, amongst other things. So over to Diane and George.
Hi, I'm Diane, and I run a lot of the engagement projects for the Derbyshire Wildlife Trust, so I'm usually busy getting people active outdoors and engaged with wildlife.
Hello, I'm George Bird, and I work as Living Landscapes Officer, which means I help to look after nature reserves across Derbyshire, and I've also got a big role to play in the reintroductions of beavers at Willington.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Perhaps George and Diane, could you talk a little bit about the chat? Look at the chat for a moment, because I'm just trying to set up our Facebook stream and I'm having a technical difficulty. So
somebody did ask a question earlier if we need any materials for today. So for the activities, a tape measure and a stopwatch will help, but it's not essential. You can get round without it. If you have got something to measure a short distance and something just to time with, that will help those activities. Are there polls? Yes, we have polls. That will be happening. That's the first activity we're doing. Hello from Alison and Mum in Ashover. You want to say some hellos, George?
Where are we at? So we've got hello from the Ivy family. I don't know if you said hello from Helen Morris. Have we done Lily and Cameron?
No, not yet.
Oh, Lily and Cameron then. Who else have we got?
The Ivy kids say your beaver is cute. You can adopt your very own beaver. See, I'm doing it for you now, Ben. I'm sure Ben will put the link in if you want to adopt your own beaver and get your very own cuddly toy.
Great. Well, thank you. Yeah. Good reminder there. You absolutely can, and you can pick one up from going to our website. Just a final bit of housekeeping before we kick off. Actually, it's just to say, for those of you here in the webinar and for those of you joining on Facebook, we have had a few naughty people trying to post links on these events, particularly on Facebook. So we're not going to post any links at all. So there'll be no links posted by us. So if you see a link anywhere, don't click it. It's not us. We're doing everything we can to stop them from being there, but don't click any links anywhere during the presentation. So a few more hellos, why not? And let's say hello to Claire from the Peak District Beaver Scouts. Oh, hello, Claire. That's a familiar face, a familiar text, I suppose. Hello, everybody else. How about we jump straight into our first activity, which is a beaver poll, I believe.
Fabulous. Okay, so we've got about 6 questions for you. You can choose the option online and we'll give you a bit of time to think about it, and then we'll tell you what the right answer is and how many people got it right, hopefully. So the first question is, which animal weighs more or less the same as a beaver? Okay, and your options are a squirrel, a rabbit, a Labrador dog, or a horse. Which one do you think is about the same size and weight as a Labrador dog, as a beaver?
I think you might have given a clue there. Oh, it looks like we've had a lot of votes in. A couple more people just making their choice. This one really surprised me, actually, I have to say. Shall we see what people thought? Let's have a look.
Yeah. I wonder why everybody chose that one. I'm glad to say nobody thinks it's the same size as a horse, but you are right. Beavers tend to weigh up to about 30 kilograms, and that's about the same weight as a Labrador dog. So well done to all of those who got that one right.
I think it's over to George, isn't it, for our next question?
In 1 second. So the second question is, what is a beaver's home called? So the choices are a burrow, a lodge, a den, or a nest.
So getting quite a few votes in. Nobody going for nest, funnily enough. But there is a split on what else it could be.
Oh,
Still people voting. I think we might be nearly there though. There we go. Let's have a look and see what people thought.
There we go. So the majority went right with lodge. So beavers actually create their lodges in water. They do this by sticking sticks into mud and then building up. They do this to create safety. So as they're leaving and entering their lodges, they can escape from predators. So what they'll do, they'll dig down under the water and create their entrances into the lodge beneath the water level.
okay, the third question is, why do beavers build dams? And you've got 4 options, and they are to make the water more shallow, to make a bridge over the water, to help them catch fish, or to make the water deeper and slower. I'm not going to give this one away.
It's a real split of answers here. I think quite a few people do have the right one. It's definitely not as clear as our first question.
Maybe it takes a little bit more thinking about this one.
I think that's probably everybody. By the way, if you're taking part in Facebook here, you can of course just post your guesses into the chat. It'd be really interesting to see what your thoughts are there as well, and our moderators will pick up on some of those replies. So just sharing the results. Let's see.
And the majority of people were right. They do it to make the water deeper and slower. Basically, if you've got your home in the middle of a piece of running water, you want the water to go by a little bit slower, so it doesn't wash the home away. But also they like it deeper. Naturally, they want it deeper so that they can hide from predators, things that will try and eat them. They don't have so many of them about from now, but they've still got that instinct there.
Okay. Our next question.
So beavers are herbivores. But what does this mean that they eat? So do they eat plants only, animals only, plants and animals, or pizza?
I know during the lockdown, I've eaten an awful lot more pizza than I usually do. So I don't know, is there a category for a type of animal that eats largely pizza? I guess it's still an omnivore, but I think it deserves one of its own.
Depends on the topping.
Yep, that's true. That is true. Okay, I think we've got all the votes in. Let's see what people thought.
Hey.
There we go. So again, the majority got the question right. So they only eat tough plants, such as leaves and the bark from trees. So this means that obviously because the bark's quite tough, it can wear the teeth down quickly. So beavers' teeth actually continually grow and they're self-sharpening, which means that they can chew into the bark, tear the bark off the trees. So it means they can get to their food pretty easily.
Okay, so the next question is that beavers actually make a food store for winter. What do we call this food store? So your 4 choices are a fridge, a cupboard, a supermarket, or a cache.
Is there a beaver equivalent of stockpiling?
This is it.
This is it, isn't it? This is exactly it. Yep.
Yeah.
Only in this case, it's a pretty rational behaviour. So sensible
Yeah.
thing to do to store food for winter if you're a beaver. Well, I think we've got enough votes in there to have a very clear result.
You are right. It is a cache. So what they're doing is in winter, there's less food for them about, given that they eat mostly plants. And what they do is they get sticks and they push them into the mud in their lodge, and the mud is cool and wet, and that keeps them as fresh as it can, ready for winter. So they've got food to eat in the winter.
Well, I mean, that sounds excellent. I'm kind of glad I got a fridge, but it is very clever anyway. Okay, and on to what I think is our last question.
So linking on from the last two, which of these foods would a beaver not eat? So we've got fern leaves, tree bark, fish, or apples.
Well, lots and lots of people getting the right answer. And I think we've got a fairly clear winner here again. Oh, who's that giving away the game? In the chat. Let's have a look.
There we are. So majority are right again with fish. As I said earlier, beavers are herbivores. So they won't touch any fish or shellfish or meat. A lot of people do actually think they eat fish, but they don't. They'll only eat, as I said earlier, things like bark, leaves, and plants. So at Willington, all the fish will be perfectly safe there.
Well, that's brilliant. So how did you guys get on the webinar? Did you get all of them right? Did you get some of them right? Did you get none of them right? Perhaps that would be quite an achievement in itself. So, oh, well done, Poppy. Well done, Ivy Kids. Well done, Harrison, Helen, and Noah. So yeah, lots of people that have done really, really well there. So yeah, they're really good.
I love that somebody blamed their mum for getting one wrong. Mum made me put apple.
Mums often do let the side down when it comes to this sort of thing. So it's fair game, I say. So I think, George, you're going to give us a bit more information about beavers now in general.
Yep. So where did beavers go? We know that beavers haven't been in Derbyshire for around 800 years. So we got the text, Ben, is it?
Sorry, yeah.
There we go. So what's the reason for this? Well, they were originally hunted for two main things, which is their fur, but also their castoreum. And this is a scent gland, which was used in medicines, amongst other things. So also they were actually eaten at one point. They were classed as being a fish because they have a very aquatic lifestyle. So that's why at the moment we haven't got beavers. But why do we want beavers back? So what we do at Willington and across Derbyshire and our wetland reserves is we pretend that we are actually beavers. So when we go out and do work, we pretend that we're a beaver. What would a beaver do? As you can see in the picture here, we've got people cutting down willow. Willow is great in the right place. So at Willington, we've got some really, really nice bits of habitat for all the wildlife there. And what the willow does is it grows and takes over from this. So what a beaver would do is it would come through, nibble on all the willow and allow all the plants to come back in the reed beds. So that's what we do at Willington, but beavers could do that for us a lot better. They're known as a keystone species. And what a keystone species is, it means that what beavers do has an impact on loads of other animals and wildlife. So things like kingfishers will come into our pools, which the beavers create, where there's fish behind them so they can hunt along the pools. We'll have dragonflies living in the dams, skimming around the ponds, sitting on the vegetation on the edges. So what they're going to do really is make Willington into such a better place than it already is, and it's already amazing at the moment. So bring back the beavers, bring back all the other wildlife, and then we can sit back and watch them work hard for us. So what's going to be the main changes to our Willington Reserve? Well, one thing that they might do is dam the water. So as Diane said earlier, they like nice deep water pools. At Willington, we've already got quite a lot of these deep water areas. So chances are they might not dam, but they've got some little water courses that they might. So if they did, then they might make the reserve wetter, bring in more fish, bring in more dragonflies. Again, better habitat. They create really, really diverse areas. So what we mean is there'll be a mixture of like woodlands, wetlands, there'll be grasslands, there'll be wild plants and everything in there. So that's what we want them to do, and that's what we think they will do, based on other studies around the UK and also across Europe.
That's really interesting. Thank you, George. Because I know we've got some people here, quite a few people here, I think, who are not from Derbyshire as well. And you mentioned that there are beaver reintroductions that have already taken place or are due to take place in other locations in the UK as well. I wonder if you could name any more of these. And sorry to put you on the spot.
That's fine. There's a place called Spain's Hall in Essex. So that's a private bit of land, and they've recently put beavers back on there. That's a really good one to follow. If you do search online, there's loads of pictures and videos, and it just shows you how successful they are. They've got pictures in the winter when areas are flooding. They hold back the water, slow it down. There's a wild population in Devon on the River Otter, and again, this is really well publicised. You can see all the pictures and videos. You can see the beavers swimming around with the wood, creating dams. You can see the otters coming in again. And also in Scotland, there's quite a lot of wild beavers in Scotland. Nowhere near enough. We need way more than there is, but there's already quite a few up there.
That's brilliant. Thanks very much, George. So I think at this point, it might be time for us to get a bit active.
Fabulous. So we think beavers have got superhero powers. They do an amazing job for wildlife. As George mentioned, they're building the dams. Hopefully some of you have already had a chance to have a go at doing our dam building activity. I'm sure if you've taken pictures or anything like that and you want to share them with us on Facebook, we'd love to see what you've been doing with that. We've got 2 more challenges for you today to see if you can beat them. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is link to how fast beavers swim. So they can swim at about 6 miles an hour, which when you're comparing it to a car doesn't sound that fast, but can you travel as fast as that? 6 miles per hour is about the same as traveling 2.7 meters in 1 second. So what I want you to do, if you've got a tape measure, that's brilliant. Measure out, go outside, measure out 2.7 meters and mark something at the beginning and something at the end. If you don't have a tape measure, it's about 4 strides for an adult, that distance. So do 4 strides and again, mark the beginning and the end. And then see how fast you can travel that distance. We don't mind how you do it. You could walk it, run it, hop it, jump, ride a bike. Just see if you can get there quicker than a beaver would. You can use a stopwatch to see how long it takes you. If you don't have a stopwatch, or you could, most phones have a stopwatch, or you could use a second hand on a watch, or you could do good old-fashioned counting. And I think the official scientific counting in this particular circumstance is 1 beaver, 2 beavers, 3 beavers to get your timing right. So see if you can have a go at that. And your second challenge is about balance. So beavers have got very big, wide tails, and these help them to swim so fast. But they also help them with something else. When they need to be on land and they're reaching up to get a branch or something tasty out of a plant, they use their tails as an extra way to balance. So you're going to go outside again. Imagine you're reaching up high for a branch or something up tall in a plant, and stand on 1 leg. Beavers have 4 legs and they have to stand on 2 to reach up. So we're going to halve your legs as well. Stand on 1 leg and see how long you can reach up for that branch, and see if it's long enough to get yourself a tasty meal or not. Okay, so see how fast you can cover 2.7 meters distance, see how long you can balance for on 1 leg, and we'll see if you can beat the beavers at their superpowers. When you come back, put it in the chat, anything you've found out, your timings or anything like that, and hopefully we'll speak to a few people and see what they managed to do.
That's great. That sounds pretty exciting. So what should we say? Should we give people, let's say just a little over 5 minutes for that activity. So if we come back at 2:30, by which time you've gone out and you've seen if you can be faster than a beaver at 2.7 meters a second, or both, in fact, and you can balance for long enough to get a good meal. So tell us how long you managed to balance for. So do go out, and of course, if you are a younger person and you've got a parent or carer there with you, then do get them to accompany you and check that the place that you are doing it is safe. Off you go. For those of you that don't want to go outside, we will just sort of sit here and say hello and have a bit of a chat and interact with the comments in the chat. So if you try, Diane,
60 seconds for balance.
That's pretty good. That is.
That's like yoga-like balance, that, isn't it?
I kind of feel like I should have a go in the background here, but I don't want to embarrass myself in front of all these people. Are either of you game? I mean, if not, I will.
Yeah, I can give it a go as
all
well.
do it together.
Yeah.
Right, here we go. Who's going to time me? That's the question.
Oh, hang on. Okay.
I might have to turn off my little background so you can see. It's a rather unexciting room that I'm in. So I suppose the only thing is you're not necessarily, if you're watching on screen, going to be guaranteed to know that I'm on one leg, but you might just have to take it on trust. Are you ready?
You could just stand there for half an hour and we wouldn't know. Are you ready? Tell me when you're balancing.
Okay, I'm balanced. Oh, this isn't so bad, he says. Oh, somebody's done. I'm going to try and read the chat while I'm doing this to see how possible that is. Somebody, so Noah took 1 second running and you managed to 1 minute 23 balancing. So that's pretty good.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Oh, a 32-second balance. How am I doing, Diane? Whoa,
you're on 30 seconds.
Oh God, I'm losing control a bit here. Oh, this is being recorded. It's going to be on YouTube for the rest of my life.
So it just looks like you're waving.
It does. It is. That's me losing. How am I doing for time here?
50 seconds.
Oh well, I feel like I'm doing really well now. I feel like I've got a kind of a Zen balance. There we go. I'm like the Karate Kid.
You're into the zone now.
I'm into the zone. Yeah. I could probably stay here for quite a long time. Oh, I'm getting some well dones in the chat as well. Thank you. I need cheering on here.
Well, somebody beat the beaver. They did 0.9 seconds for the 2.7 meter.
I've got a Helen who's watching us on Facebook who's done 2.7 meters in 2 seconds. Wow. Somebody did 1.5 minutes hopping. Oh, come on now. You've really raised the game here. Okay. Oh no!
That was 1 minute 40. That's pretty good.
Well, I mean, the hopping really didn't help me. Oh, look at that! Noah did 4 minutes 46 on his second go. Aaron, 2 minutes, very good, very good. So I've got a couple of people listening. I'm quite interested to know how they did. So Nigel, did you balance and hop? I'd like to see in the chat. So Nigel is one of our trustees. Quite interested to know how well he got on with the hopping. So
Eva Beaver's at 2 minutes and still balancing.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah. Ellie, 3 minutes 20. Excellent, excellent. All sorts of good times coming in here. Wow, 30. Well, I think lots of people have done a really good round of activities here. I mean, I suppose what we haven't got them to do is to chew through a tree like a beaver. But I think, just so we're clear, don't try that at home. It's not an advisable activity.
No. Maybe a celery stick.
Nigel has come back to us to let us know that unfortunately he wasn't balancing. He was busy doing it. Perhaps, Nigel, I'll catch you for a separate balancing session another time. So we've got, I mean, Sophie is still standing right now and she's been there for 5 minutes. So I think probably, I don't know if you want to set yourself a goal that you get to, because otherwise you might be standing there on one leg forever. That is not what we're looking for. Well done, Oscar. Good speed, great balancing. And Holly, excellent.
Sophie's not only balancing, she's also messaging you.
Oh,
So
she is? Are you messaging me while balancing?
oh, and Jamie, age 7, did the run in 0.8 seconds. So he's
Wow, that's quick. And he's got his mummy balancing.
Noah's still standing at nearly 7 minutes.
That's amazing. Lots of great comments. So we'll have a couple more minutes of people sharing their times. I've got, well, Joseph and Will saying you want to adopt a beaver. Well, I mean, you can adopt a beaver by getting a beaver pack, of course, which is the background for me. It isn't a real beaver, I'm afraid, but your purchase of a beaver adoption pack will support the reintroduction of real beavers. Yeah, do please come to the Derbyshire Wildlife Trust website and buy it from the shop. And somebody fell.
But he managed 7 minutes.
That's a pretty heroic timing, though.
Eva's cat's now making her wobble.
Well, I mean, what do you think, George? Cats, beavers, good combo?
I would probably put them together based on where they live, but I think they get on pretty well if they're side by side.
I suppose a beaver is far too big to be harassed by a cat.
Oh, yeah, I don't think that cat would bother a beaver.
Yeah.
Well, at least small cats. Big wild cats, then that's different, but I think we're quite safe in the UK.
Yes, well, the plans to reintroduce tigers to Willington are quite a long way off, aren't they?
We're not quite there yet with that one.
Somebody's asking about a live cam for the beavers. I mean, that's a good idea, and certainly once the beavers are there, we'll be looking at putting stuff around the reserve. Do you want to talk about that a bit, George?
Yeah, so part of the project, we have to monitor everything that we do. So monitoring could be counting the plant species that are in the area. It could be looking at the birds, but also looking at what the beavers are doing. So we're going to do a lot of photography. So we're going to get drones to fly over, obviously high enough so they're not disrupting anything on the ground. So we'll have drones taking pictures so we can see the changes. But as you said, with the live stream, it would be a great idea. So what we'd like to do is once we know where the beavers are, where they set up their sort of their home and where their activity is, then we'd like to get some cameras up for live streams. So hopefully we can do that. And then you can all sit at home, sit at work, sit at school. Well, not sit at school, you shouldn't sit at school watching your phones, but you'd be able to sit around and watch the beavers live on the stream. But what we really want you to do is we want you to come down and have a look at them. So we'll hopefully have some viewing platforms, and then you can come down, sit and watch them in the evenings, in the mornings. And what we want you to do as well is let us know. So when we've got them, we want you to let us know that you've seen them. So come down, spot them and tell us all about it.
Yeah, that's. I'm really looking forward to being able to do that, George. Yeah, that's excellent. So I think what we'll probably do now, it's just coming up to past. So hopefully, with nobody still balancing, is anybody still balancing? Just looking. Doesn't seem like it. I suppose if they are, they might not be. Oh, we do have somebody who's still balancing. At least one person is still balancing. Well, up to you, Becky. You can balance on. Oh, quite a few. If you are still balancing, then well, it's entirely up to you if you want to carry on balancing. If it's safe to do so, you're free to do so, and I'll be interested to hear from you as to what time you ultimately get to. But what we're going to do now is we're going to open up the session to questions from everybody. So if you've not already found the Q&A box, which is at the bottom of your screen, then please have a look for it now and go in there and type your question in. And we will pick out as many as we can to answer live. If you're watching this on Facebook, just post your questions into the comments, and the moderators will get a few of those through to us, and we will try to answer some of those as well. Let's have a look. So I'm just opening up the questions now. And well, we're going to go across to Joseph and Will. And hear from them for their question.
Yeah, I'm here. So, I just wanted to know how many beavers are there left in the wild in UK?
Yep, good question. So in the UK, there is wild populations and captive populations. So in Devon, in the River Otter, there's a wild population of beavers down there. I can't remember, I'm afraid, off the top of my head, how many are there, but I think there is a couple of families. And then we've got Scotland, Tayside. There's numbers are going up every year, and that's in the high hundreds. I think it might be in the thousands now in Scotland. But also, not so much general knowledge. There is quite a few unregulated populations around the UK in hidden spots. So they're out there as well. But yeah, Scotland at the moment is the biggest population of beavers along the river up in Tayside.
Thank you very much for your question. So we're going to go across now to Cameron for their question, which I believe is about dams.
How do they build dams?
Do you want to do some, Diane?
You're the expert. But basically they use mud and sticks to do it. They pile rocks up on the bottom, don't they? And then they do like layers of mud and sticks to build their dams. But they've got to fell all the wood as well that they need. They can't just go and pick up a stick from the woodland. They're felling all the trees as well, which is why they need those really big teeth. And they're doing it underwater a lot of the time as well, the beginning bit, aren't they? So imagine holding your breath underwater, some building while you're down there. It can't be very easy.
Thank you.
Thank you. What a great question. So we're going across to Nigel, or potentially Nigel's children. We're not sure which on the line. So let's hear your question.
Yeah, I was just wondering: is there a nationwide coordinated beaver reintroduction program, or are we just doing it sort of haphazardly, individually when we can?
Yeah, so currently we don't have a coordinated approach. So it's done by individual trusts or charities or landowners at the moment. So for instance, what we're doing is we're working with a reintroductions expert, and he's giving us all the advice and guidance needed to plan the area, to plan for the reintroductions, to get a license from Natural England. And then also what we're going to do is share all our information with other trusts, how we've done it, what was good, what was bad, how's the best way to go forwards. But what we really need is a coordinated approach across the UK. Beavers are great. They're going to help in flooding, to rewild the landscape, to bring back natural processes. So what we need is a strategic approach, a coordinated approach of planning where beavers are going to go, how we're going to manage the beavers. So beavers can damage land. They can dam, they can flood land, but this can all be mitigated. It can all be helped. So what we need is beaver advisors, beaver volunteers to go out to these landowners and say, look, you're a bit scared about beavers, but this is what's going to happen. This is what we can do. If you do have your land flooded, we can come in and we can move the dams. We can put devices in which lower the water. That's what we need. We need a coordinated approach. We need a way of reintroducing them, a way of talking to landowners, and we need the government to get behind us and back it so we can have beavers everywhere. They've done it in Europe, in Bavaria. The landowners are generally happy. They have issues at the start. Once they're smoothed out, it works, it's perfect. Tourism increases, flooding reduces. So we just need the government to get on our side to create a coordinated approach so everyone can work together to improve the whole environment, really. I hope that answered the question.
Oh,
Yes, thank you. Sorry, I muted my microphone. Yes, thank you
very much for your question, Nigel. So we're going across to Amelia now.
Why are beavers friendly?
So yes, that's a good question. Beavers can be friendly. So they're very, very laid back, really. So if you stand back, let them get on with it, they'll swim around in front of you. They'll happily carry on about their daily lives, building dams, eating. But when you get too close, if they've got young, or if, say, for instance, a dog was to run up to them, they do have big teeth. So if they wanted to, they could give you a big bite to scare you off. They wouldn't do it to hurt you. They just do it to be like, this is my area, please give me some room. So beavers generally get on with most things. So like I said, they like deep water. So if they feel threatened, they'll generally run off and dive right down into the water and keep out of your way. But yeah, you just got to watch out for those big teeth, because if they're not happy, then they could turn around and give you a bit of a nip.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amelia. So we're going across to Harla now, who's got a question about animals that hunt beavers. So sometimes happens. It sounds like there might be a problem with Harla's microphone. So we'll ask the question for them. So this is from Harla, age 7, and they are asking what animals hunt beavers. So which animals are hunting them?
So in the UK, we don't really have any animals now that would hunt for beaver. So it would have been sort of your big cats and your, I think wolves. I'm not too sure, I'm afraid, about that one. But that's the reason, obviously, like I said earlier, why they have deep water. So although most of the UK wildlife can swim, not many wildlife like to swim right down. So that's why beavers have big, deep pools. So if we were to introduce beavers, then at the moment they'd have no real natural predators in the UK.
So something like a fox, that wouldn't be able to get to it?
Based on the size, yeah, I think beavers are generally too big for a fox, and also they won't be able to dive down into the water. But you do have otter, so that's another thing. I'm glad you actually reminded me. So when the beaver young are really small, when they first come out of their lodges, they can be the right size for an otter to take. But once they get big enough, then they're too big for an otter, really. But it's when they're really young, really small, then an otter could potentially try and have a go at a younger beaver.
That's great. It's a really interesting question. Thank you very much, Harla. So just going to do a couple of questions from Facebook now. So I've got a question from Vicky, which is, do they only have one set of teeth?
So
Do you think she means just 2 at the front and no others?
No others, like, I don't know, maybe do they have rows of them or anything like that?
I'm not too sure, really. So obviously they have the 2 big teeth at the front, and so they interlock like that. And what they are, they're big, strong teeth which constantly grow, and they're self-sharpening. So the bottom teeth rub against the top teeth to create a point, and that allows the beavers to gnaw through the wood. And they look orange because they've got iron to strengthen the teeth. But yeah, like I said, they'll go like that, and then the bottom teeth will wear away the inside of the top teeth, which creates a point so they can chew through the bark. But yeah, about other teeth, I'm not sure. I imagine I wouldn't want to even take a guess, I'm afraid. So it's one that we can have a look at, because that's a really good question.
Yeah,
I've never thought about that.
You get a special prize, I think, maybe, for coming up with a question that we can't answer. So well done, Vicky.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Rodents have teeth back here, don't they? So
yeah, so you'd imagine.
Rodents have their front teeth, then a gap, and then a row of teeth here.
Yeah, you'd imagine they've got to, haven't they? Because
they have the same.
Thanks. We've got another question from Facebook, which is from Sophie, which is, how long do their teeth grow? So yeah, another interesting tooth-based question.
Yeah, so in regards to growth, obviously, like I said, they continually grow, and they'll continue to sharpen. I don't know about how long they grow to. I'm guessing it depends on the size of the beaver as well. But that's another good one we can have a look at how long they actually do get to. I don't know if you know, Matt.
They keep growing continuously, don't they?
Yeah, so they grow continuously, but they'll get sharpened because they'll wear down. So imagine if they didn't grow continuously and they didn't self-sharpen, they'd become blunt. So because they keep growing, they'll keep growing into a spike, and then as they gnaw the wood away, it will file them down, but also keep them sharp as they grind against each other.
Great, thanks. Great question, Sophie. So we're going to go live to Poppy now. Hello.
What is a beaver's favourite food, and what is the biggest beaver that lived?
Do you know the food, Diane, or?
I couldn't tell you which their favourite was. I know what they do eat, like fern leaves and bark and trees. I wouldn't know do all beavers have the same favourite? Are they like us? Do they like different things? Not sure.
Yeah. So just to add a bit more to that as well, at Willington we've got loads of bramble, and I've been told that they really like bramble. So at Willington they've got plenty of that, and also we've got loads of little willow. So small willow that grows, we cut it down, it grows back again into little shoots. And so they take the bark, they don't actually take the wood from the tree. So some people think they go into the middle of the tree and eat the wood, they just eat the bark around the edge. So when you see them eating shoots, they're not actually eating wood. Most of the shoots made up of like sort of bark that's not gone hard yet. So at Willington, no, I think they'll love the willow there. There's plenty of willow for them, plenty of bramble. And I don't know about the largest beaver. I don't know if either of you two know about the largest beaver.
No, I only know like that 30 kilos is kind of the biggest they generally get to. I don't know if anybody's ever managed to weigh the largest beaver ever.
Not sure. We do know though that in the UK, beavers do live a lot longer than they would normally in the wild. And this is because there's not as many around. So there's less competition, so they can live a lot longer in the UK.
So maybe we'll end up with a record-breaking size of beaver. Quite possibly. Okay, great question. Thank you, Poppy. So, Aaron, I mean, actually, your question's just been asked, actually. He was going to ask that same question. But, Aaron, do you have a different question you might want to ask? If so, we can bring you in to ask it. So, just having some problems with your mic, so don't press anything, Aaron. Okay, no, we can't get through to you, Aaron. I'll just leave you there for a minute and we'll try and come back to you to see if we can resolve that technical issue. So we're going across to the person with the ID 847. We don't know what your name is, but please do let us know and ask your question. Oh, well, this is unfortunate.
Where are the beavers coming? Native or not, that you're going to introduce?
Yeah, good question again. So the beavers that we'll introduce will be from Scotland. So there's quite a lot in Scotland at the moment. There's not enough. But what they can do in Scotland is they can track them. And what we'll do is we'll get a family of beavers, hopefully. So that will either be a male and female pair or a male and female pair with their young. And then what we'll do, we'll bring them down from Scotland, put them in quarantine, and then once we know they're okay, they've had all the tests done to make sure they're not carrying diseases or anything like that, then we can release them at Willington. So the Eurasian beavers, so they're not American, and they're from the UK. We don't get them from Europe anymore because we've got a decent population up in Scotland to bring down.
Thank you.
No worries.
Thank you very much. So we'll just try Aaron again and see if we can get that microphone working. No, okay. So I'm afraid we can't come to you, Aaron. So I'm really sorry about that. But your question about the heaviest beaver was answered. Do feel free to post another question, and we will just ask it live on air. So we're going to go across to the Ivy kids now. Hello.
Hello. Sorry. Did they hear us? Like, sorry. Oh wait, where's the? Can you hear us? Can you hear us?
Yes, we can hear you.
Sorry, we were just wondering whether do beavers live in groups, or do they just build their own homes and live a solo life?
Yep. So beavers act like a family group. There'll be a male and female pair that has the young, and then each year when they have new young, the young from the year before will then act like aunties and uncles, well, brothers and sisters, but aunties and uncles, they'll raise the young with them. The only reason really that they spread out is to go obviously find a new pair, or if the area they're in has got too small for them. So if they're in a small area and there's not enough resources, then the younger ones will start to be pushed out into new areas. But they'll live like a family unit and they'll stay together. But you don't really want two different family units in the same place too tight, because there will be competition there. But somewhere like Willington, we could easily have two families there because we've got enough room for them. Yeah, they'll live as a family unit quite happily together.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Very much, great question. So we're going across to Emily now. It does seem like we can't hear you there, Emily. So we'll just try and bring in somebody else. So let's bring in Louise. So let's see if we can get Louise on. Oh, this is always unfortunate. I'll just try that one more time. Okay, so I've got I'll ask the question slide. So from Ivy's mum, who's comes as Emily. The question is, how do you stop them escaping from the reserve?
So this takes a lot of planning and preparation. It's not something we just jump into. So we have a specially designed fence. And what this is it's a wire mesh fence. And what we do with the fence is we drop the bottom of the fence into the ground by about 60 centimeters. And then we run into the inside of the enclosure. We put another wire mesh on top of the ground. And what this does is it stops the beavers from burrowing down and underneath the fence to get out. And then we have brooks and streams running through the reserve. So what we have to do for that is put grates on the actual brooks, but the grates are big enough to let other wildlife in and out. But because beaver is obviously quite large, it stops the beavers from being able to get out. And you might think, well, how are we going to have a fence? Obviously, they might chew it down. They won't chew on metal. It's not something they'd like to chew on. And then what we'll do is we'll have volunteers, if anyone out here would like to try that, that will come in and walk the fence line, and we'll check it every other day or so, just to make sure it's intact still. But the mesh fence that we have, it's small enough mesh to stop the beavers getting out, but it's big enough to let other things come in and out as well. So your voles, your mice, those sorts of things will be fine to come in. We had a question about otters as well. Otters can climb the fence. We're not having an overhang, so they can just climb straight over it, in and out. And that's really how we stop them. And then with the posts, obviously the wooden, we'll put them on the outside of the fence just to stop any gnawing. The chances are they won't even be interested because the fence is that far enough away from the water where they'll be, they probably won't travel across the land to get there.
That's great. Really interesting question. Thank you. So we'll just try Louise one more time. Have you managed to get your microphone fixed?
Evelyn.
Oh.
Hi, I'm Evelyn. My question is, beavers have tiny eyes. Can they see very well?
Yeah, so their eyes are quite, so they're an aquatic species really. They spend most of the time underwater. So it's a bit of protection for them, the small eyes. So they're quite capable of seeing, and they come out mostly at dusk and dawn as well. So in order to see it in the dark, they will have pretty good eyesight. But like I said, they're small, so when they're in the water, they're not slowing them down or getting caught on the twigs and the branches as they're building the dams.
A lot of animals have better sight than us as well, because if you look at our eyes, you've got white in your eyes, and then you've got a bit of colour. And the bit that lets the light in is the little black bit in the middle, whereas most animals, the whole of their eye is the black bit, so it lets more light in.
There you go. Beavers can still see. Thank you very much for that question. So we're going to go to Sophie now. Hello, Sophie.
Hello. How long can beavers hold their breath?
Ooh, I like that question. That's interesting.
Yeah, Diane.
No idea.
No. I don't know if someone can have a quick search in the chat.
I'll see if I can find out.
I'm going to have to Google that one. I think you've done well there. You've beaten the panel.
Yeah, if Diane can find out, that'd be cool. Be good for us to know as well.
I'll come back to you on that one. Great question. Yeah, let's return to you later. And we've got Joseph and Will. So if you're there, Joseph and Will, let's hear your question.
I just want to know if beavers can climb.
That's interesting. What do you mean by climb? Like anywhere in particular?
Like climb up the trees and things.
So what beavers do Oh, I forgot the answer to the last one. Should we answer this one, then we'll go back?
Lauren, have you found it? Yeah. So hold on a second then. With the climbing, have you got the answer to the?
Well, people have also been googling and got different answers. Mine says, and this is in facts about beavers, that they can hold their breath for 15 minutes, but other people are saying 45 minutes. But yeah, it says 15. They can remain underwater without breathing for up to 15 minutes. More than I can do.
15 minutes, did you say?
Yeah.
Blimey, that is a lot.
They're very impressive, that.
Okay, do you want to go back to Joe and Will's question?
Yep. So what you'll find in the wild is beavers generally won't climb. So when you see trees felled, could be for a number of reasons, but one of the reasons is they fell it, and then they'll walk up the trunk and take the bark off, take the shoots, take the leaves. So they fell the trees so they can eat them. That's one reason they fell trees. We've got this mesh fence, and that's just a straight mesh fence, which if you look at a mesh fence, it would be so easy to climb. But the fact that beavers can't get out there probably indicates that they don't climb. So yeah, fell the trees to get to what they need. They won't climb the fence, so as far as I'm aware, they don't climb.
That's great. Thank you very much. What an interesting question.
Carol has added in the chat there that beavers are not tree climbers because they're too bottom heavy.
I've got some questions from Facebook quickly before we go to our next live question. We've got a question from Helen, which is how much help will beavers be with flood control? So it's something that we hear about a lot. What kind of impacts do you think they'll have? I suppose the question's both at Willington, but also nationally, what kind of impact could larger scale reintroductions have?
Yeah, so Willington is at the end of Eglinton Brook. By the time the water's got to Willington, it's really too late to have any impact on the surrounding area. The Trent's right next to it. But what we will do at Willington, we'll hold the water on there for longer, which means that the flow is reduced a little bit, so it gets into the Trent a little bit slower. But also in the summer months, because the water's backed up behind the dams, that will release slowly and should help to keep the reserve wetter during the summer. Which will be a benefit to loads of different species. So what we really want to do though is have beavers all along these rivers, all along these streams, all the way up to the sort of top of the catchment, so where the rivers and stuff starts. And what we want to do is have a series of dams all the way along it, so each dam holds a little bit of water each time, and that should help to slow the flow of water down the rivers. So when it gets to sort of Willington, that's when you're going to see the real big impacts because the water's got there slower. So in flood events, when it's raining a lot, the water comes down slower. And then in the summer, because it's trapped, it will come down and keep those rivers and streams wetter. But what we want is, we want them everywhere. Willington's a great spot for them now. It's great for us. It's great for the environment. For flooding, not so great. It's still going to help a little bit, but nothing like it would do if we had them all the way up the river, all the way up to the top of the catchments, all up in the hills, which is why we need that sort of coordinated approach across the UK. We spend a lot of money on flood prevention. We could bring the beavers back and let them do it for us naturally.
That's great. Thank you very much. So we'll take another live question now. We're going to another Sophie Safford this time.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, so I was wondering about just the biodiversity that might be introduced by introducing beavers. So what other wildlife would their presence allow to come into the reserve? And are any of those species that would live better in the environment with beavers, are they important to conservation as well?
Yeah, so as Diane said, there are wildlife superheroes, is that the term? Yeah, and they're keystone species. So everything that they do has a knock-on effect on other wildlife. At Willington, it will help to clean up the brook at the bottom.
Hopefully. Ya está, it's okay.
Oh, 1 second. Got that muted then. There we go.
Oh, sorry?
Sorry, just a bit of some chatting over the top then, sorry. Yeah, I'll carry on. So at Willington, we have things like water ale, we have lots of waders. So what we'll do is, if we do create dams, it'll help to wet the areas, so it will create more sort of marginal vegetation. So plants that grow along the edges of the ponds.
How are the baby beavers?
it'll create some muddy areas. So your waders will, like the waders are birds that like to go along the shoreline and go through the mud looking for insects and stuff. So what the dams and the pools will do is increase the invertebrates in there. It'll then impact the birds because there'll be more food for the birds to eat. As they clean up the waterways, we could potentially see water voles coming back. The ponds and stuff will have fish in there, which the fish can actually still get through the dams because they are leaky. And so they can swim through the dams, they can jump over the dams, and they can collect in the pools. So you'll have kingfishers coming in there, you'll have otters coming in there to feed. It will just have knock-on effects for everything, really. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Diane, to that one?
No, you covered it.
Could I ask another question in relation to a question that you answered for someone else as well? So you said about with predators, they don't have many predators, and I was wondering, would that make it a possibility for them to become kind of dominant in an area, and then, or do they generally not produce enough offspring to be able to achieve that so quickly?
So I'm probably not best to answer that because I'm not really a beaver ecologist, but I do know that a good way to control the population is through sort of self-regulation between different families. So obviously I don't want to go too much into it because there's a few younger people on the call, but they do get competitive. And that's why they live so long in the UK, because they're not being competitive. They're not damaging each other. I think that's as far as I'll go with that one. But if we do have them in everywhere, then they can start to regulate themselves. You'll only have a certain amount of beavers able to coexist in one area. So that should help to keep the levels at a sort of a sustainable level. But like I say, I'm not a beaver ecologist. So there's people like Derek Gow who do know a lot about this that could help out with that one.
Okay, cool, thank you.
Thank you very much. So we're going to go across to, the username says Tracy Hatcher, and it's a picture of a gentleman. So so we're not quite sure which it is, but let's hear your question if you're there. Hello.
Hi. How big of a tree can beavers chop down?
So they're very good at what they do. So if you do have a look online, you'll see some amazing pictures of what they've done. So using my head for scale, I've seen pictures where they've been through trees about that sort of size. But at Willington, we've got loads of little willows around, small vegetation. So they'll probably go for those first, create their little feeding areas, as Diane said earlier about their cache. But if they needed to, I've seen pictures when they go through things like that. And if you do search for beaver felling trees, there's a few videos on there where people are looking to catch them. And it is really impressive to see these big trees falling.
Thank you.
Thanks, great question. So we're nearly at the end of the time that we have for this. So what I would say is, so we're going to take one more question from Facebook and one more live question from Milo. If you've not managed to get your question answered, I do apologise. There's been loads of really good and interesting questions. You can send your questions in to us to our email, which is inquiries@derbyshirewt.co.uk. And we will try and answer as many of them as we can. Now, sometimes when I say something like that, we get hundreds of questions. So it takes a bit of time for us to get back to you on occasion. But if you've got a beaver question and we haven't been able to get to you today, then please do send it in to us. So our last question from Facebook is going to be from Sophie, who's asking about the differences between beavers and otters, because she thinks that they're similar. What do you think?
So I think the main one we'd like to get across is beavers do take fish.
Don't take fish, you mean?
Yeah, I said beaver, didn't I? Otters do take fish, whereas beavers don't. So beavers are completely herbivorous. They won't eat fish or any meat-based foods. And also beavers will have a much bigger impact on their environment. So they do things like fell trees, dam the waterways, which the otters will thrive off. Both of them have semi-aquatic lifestyles, so both spend a lot of time in the water, both very, very good swimmers. So whereas an otter will sort of utilise the habitat that's there, beavers will create their own. So I think that's another big difference is beavers create their own homes, create their own environment. They make the land what they want it to be. Whereas otters, they can be really affected by poor water qualities and damages to river structures and stuff like that. So beavers will help otters in the long run, and otters will utilise what the beavers have created.
It's really interesting. Thank you very much. So we're going to go across to our last live question. Just before we do, I just want to say, if you would like to see beavers reintroduced, and we hope you do, there's two things you can do. One, of course, is to support beaver reintroduction here in Derbyshire or at your local wildlife trust. At Derbyshire, you can do that by visiting our website, buying a beaver adoption pack, or contributing towards our crowdfunder at your local wildlife trust. Check to see what their reintroduction programme is, and please do all you can to support it. But also, for those who, perhaps for some of the adults on the call, we're asking the government right now to make sure that they do commit to a beaver strategy. So Nigel earlier was talking about reintroductions and how that can be coordinated. Well, really, that's a role for DEFRA and for the government. And at the moment, there's talk of delaying that, which could slow down reintroductions and lead to a moratorium on reintroductions. We don't think that's a good idea. We think lots and lots of people want the beavers reintroduced, and there is an action that you can sign up to, just to say that you agree and that you would like to make sure that that policy is in place. So if you sign up by email, we'll send that to you and you can sign it. Otherwise, have a look on our website and sign up there. We're going to go to our last question now. Milo, hopefully we can get you on. So if you're there, say hello. I definitely heard you earlier, so don't press any buttons. Let me unmute your mic. Oh, well, that's a disappointing end if we can't get through to you. There we go. Hello.
The baby beavers when they can first swim.
Was that how old are baby beavers when they can first swim?
Yeah.
Yep, so it doesn't take them long. So because their lodges are built in the water or into the banks, the first thing that they'll do is they'll come out of the lodge in the water. So it's not long, is it? I can't remember quite how long it is until they can come out of the lodge, but as soon as they can come out, they do. Do you know, Diane?
I don't, sorry.
I can't remember how long it is after they first come out, which is a tricky question for the last one.
Another stumper.
Yeah.
Wow, what a question.
But obviously, as soon as they can they do swim, and they know how to swim straight away because they have to come straight out underneath the water.
Oh, so they are actually, you know, so the first thing then when they emerge from the dam for the very first time, it's straight into water.
Yeah, because all the entrances are underwater to keep them safe.
There
so
you
as
go.
soon as they can, they swim.
Oh, okay.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much. Great question. And thanks everybody for joining us. If you missed part of the session, then we'll be posting a recording on our YouTube channel, which will be available online. Next week, we are talking about bees. Our session will be Be Kind. Well, Diane, do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, we've got Rodri coming along from Bumblebee Conservation Trust to answer the Q&A questions. And we've got a few activities that we'll send out before the session to get you a bit more familiar with the differences between bumblebees and other bees, and also a few more challenges to take part in during the session, such as flapping your wings as fast as a bumblebee.
Wow. We've had some pretty energetic participants here, so I'm sure we're going to see that again. And I heard rumours that we might go live to somewhere where we might see some bees, some wildflowers. Is that true?
Heard about that one?
I think it might be. I think it might be. So we might get a bit of outdoors as well on the next session. So that'll be 2 o'clock next week. And if you want to sign up, then go to our website or our Facebook page, and you'll find the links to Eventbrite, which will allow you to come in and join the session and interact live. Of course, you can watch it on Facebook as well. And we thank everybody that's joined us there. And that is it. So let's say goodbye. Bye. Oh, just actually before that, one more thing. Thank you to all the Beaver troops that have been joining us, by the way. A really big thank you. I've seen quite a few of you in the chat. We're really pleased you could join us, and we hope you enjoyed the session. Okay, thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.